I am Maverick King. This is Ms. Monica Bryant. Welcome to Mavmon at the Movies. Ms. Bryant, we just saw The Creator, brand new science fiction original IP. How often do we get to say that these days? Made by Gareth Edwards, the director of Rogue One, arguably the best Star Wars product since Disney has taken over the Star Wars line. We went to not the premiere, the special screening of The Creator. It still is coming out about a week and a half from now.
The 29th.
The 29th of September in our Lord, the year of our Lord 2023. How was your experience? First of all, we went to this screening. There was a lot of movie people there. Little old me, I just felt like a fish out of water. How was the experience of going? They had this special, what do you call it, a presentation where they had a lot of movie props, and they had people dressed as the AI people walking around in character. It was very interesting. How was your experience taking all that in?
It was fun and just reminded me of why I moved to Los Angeles in the first place. Chasing a dream, to be a filmmaker, to work in the industry and do all those things. And it's unfortunate that everyone's on strike right now and, you know, not getting a fair deal, so they couldn't promote their own movie. So they have found these creative ways to share the movie a little early with movie lovers. So we got to go into a experience. There was movie props set up, and then the AI people. I did not know that those were real people at first. I thought they were mannequins because they were very stationary, and then all of a sudden they would move and walk to a different spot in the room, and I was like, oh my god, that was a real person. And then later we were scrolling through Twitter and found out that they did the same thing at the Chargers game. And it was like the same people, because I recognized some of them. We saw them tonight, and then they were walking around the field and they were sitting in the audience watching the game just to promote the movie. So very creative stuff. It looked like they were doing some type of like art. You could wait in line and it looked like you could get your picture drawn as an AI. I think that's what they were doing. And there was just a room with like the lights, kind of like an effect from the film. So it was very cool. I did like it. I wasn't sure we could take photos, so I kept my phone put away. We had a badge around our neck. The badge said you couldn't even take a picture of the badge and put it online. So I didn't want to break any rules. So I felt like being there, I was already crossing the picket lines. I was like, am I a scab right now? Am I being a scab? I don't want to be a scab. So I didn't know what the rules were. I wasn't sure. There was a place where they had backdrops set up where clearly you could take photos. So that was okay. But everything else, I was like, I'm just gonna keep my phone in my pocket because I don't want to. I'm not a rule breaker.
Well, the one person that was there, if anyone would have broken any rules or would have been liable for breaking rules, it would have been the director, writer of the movie, Gareth Edwards, who was there to introduce the movie. So I feel like him being there was okay for us to be there. It was okay for anyone to be there. If the guy that wrote and directed the movie was there, I feel like it was perfectly okay. He introduced the movie, and then we sat and had a wonderful experience watching this movie. A lot of thoughts. We'll keep this video completely spoiler-free, outside of kind of generally what we're shown in the trailer, impressions of the movie. Perhaps we'll have a spoiler review, maybe a last-page spoiler review after the movie drops, but I don't want to give any spoilers out onto the internet yet. This is a very interesting, visually striking movie. Let's start with kind of the background. Gareth Edwards is the director of Rogue One, as I said, and the visual style translates very much, according to the International Movie Database, against the backdrop of a war between humans and robots with artificial intelligence. A former soldier, Denzel Washington's son, John Washington, John David Washington.
John David
Washington. A former soldier finds the secret weapon, a robot in the form of a young child. So in the trailers, one of the trailers it shows that a atom bomb detonates on Los Angeles, killing 1 million people, creating this ground zero. It is attributed to the AIs that has gone rogue, and basically that is the crux of this movie. John David Washington is sent, trying to figure out how to talk about this without giving any spoilers, but basically is sent on a mission, and he encounters this child who has special abilities. How did you like, Ms. Bryant? How did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? What was your impression watching this movie? And would you recommend The Creator?
I really liked this movie. It pulled at my heartstrings, and I was pretty much a bowl of mush watching it. It makes you care about the character so much. And so I enjoyed that, and I would recommend the movie. I thought it was great, so definitely go see it. This is probably going to be one of the best movies of the year.
You're very high on this movie.
I'm very high on this movie, yes. I'm sold.
This movie, there's two very distinct ways that it falls into my brain. One of them being just how visually this movie is absolutely incredible. Very similar, before seeing the movie, you compared it, and it was very similar looking to District 9.
Yeah.
Phenomenal movie from 2009, I think. District 9 just visually looked great. Humans and CGI aliens in that movie, combination of practical effects, looked really cool. This draws on that a little bit, but I mean, going back to Rogue One, everything in that movie looks really good, and such a departure from how a lot of those other Disney Star Wars movies look, where the Star Destroyers look super sick, and they have practical models of Star Destroyers in Rogue One. The lighting of them looks so crisp and so clean, and that translates to this movie with the new type of ships they have, with the AI people in this movie, because there's robots that are pure robots, and then there's the AI people. I forget the name of, they have a name for them in the movie that I forget.
There's
Simulants? Something like that.
Similac?
Something like that. But they have the kind of what you see on the poster and what you see in the trailer is that they have kind of this hole that goes through each of their ears that aren't there, and then it's kind of this metal frame of the neck, and then the front is a face. And those are kind of like hybrid. They're AI created people, but they're sentient, and there's a divide in the world of whether or not you see AI people as complete enemies or whether or not they are friends. But everything looks amazing. The firefights, the gunfights, there's a lot of explosion. This is an explosion porn movie. This isn't just the 90s ball of flame and just people walking away from explosions. Every time a missile hits the ground, it looks so cool. I really feel like Gareth Edwards is just missile porn at this point. He loves missile porn. Like, going back to Rogue One, there's just a lot of really cool detonations, and they look really cool every time they happen. They happen a lot in this movie. I love the visuals of the way that the ears, the space in between the ears that's open, that moves and rotates. It's just really, ILM is this visual effects department that took care of this movie, and it looks really good. And it's so strange that movies like this can look so good, and then you get other, almost every Marvel movie that's come out in the last 3 years that looks just way below this movie. Way below this movie in terms of scope, in terms of what they were trying to do. This movie is very bold with the visual decisions and choices it's going for, and it pulls it off perfectly. You're not gonna look, there's no part of this movie where I was like, that doesn't look very good. Everything looks really good. But then the story is another matter for me. Ms. Bryant, you said this movie pulled at your heartstrings. So they introduce John David Washington. He is the protagonist of this movie. The AI person, simulant. I'm just gonna say simulant. I apologize if I got it wrong.
I think it's simulant.
I think it's simulant. If it's not, I'll put it up right here. What it really is. Madeline Una Voiles. Have I said that right? She is introduced. This is her debut movie, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
She plays the child. How did you feel about her dynamic with John David Washington? And do you feel like the acting chemistry was there?
She's so good. Like, people always like to poo-poo child actors, but I think she did a phenomenal job. They cast her for a reason, and there's a certain type of child actor can really capture a character and make you believe it, and they definitely picked the right kid for the job.
And as far as the story goes, you kind of were along. Did you buy kind of John David Washington's arc of this movie, of kind of the path he goes on? He's a military fellow in this movie, and there's a path that he goes on. It takes ebbs and flows. Did you feel like that was pulled off correctly?
I think as a character, he does stay true to his journey, and there was never a point in the movie where I was like, why is he doing that? That's not what he wanted. So it is believable. He's a consistent character. Also thought he did a phenomenal job. So, I mean, I just love the movie. I want to watch it again. Can we watch it again?
We watch it again. We watch it again. This was a great experience because this was at the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, and they did, the only thing they didn't do was wine and dine, because I was expecting someone with a tray of alcohol to walk by at some point, and I was just going to be like, this is the way to get me to like your movie. Give me some liquor. They gave us free popcorn, free soda, and then there was you walk around the area where they have the people dressed up as AI. I get the pull of, it's always easy to make fun of. There's certain social media influencers. There are influencer movie critic people, and there's a lot of them that will just, how do I say this? Suck the dick of the movie that they just watched, where it's like, maybe the movie was great, maybe it wasn't, but regardless, you can just set your timer to when the social media reviews drop, then they'll just be like, this was the experience that took my breath away. I cannot believe the performances they have just these ridiculous, over-the-top glowing, and sometimes it's justified. Most of the time, they're bloviating a bit. And so I get it though, because you go to these experiences, a lot of times the actors, not in this case because of the strikes, the actors would be there. In this case, the director was there, and you kind of can get caught up in the wave of like, oh yeah, we're like here to watch this movie, and these people that made the movie are here. I get kind of the allure and the pull of that. That being said, the story of the movie, I felt was lacking. It is a combination of different movies. Terminator 2, Children of Men, Blade Runner 2049. Ironically enough, interestingly enough, Rogue One came out 2016. Blade Runner 2049 came out 2017. So they were very close in release date, but the whole aspect, it's hard to do a movie, a futuristic movie, a dystopian movie of sorts, and not have it compared to Blade Runner. But I felt like what Blade Runner does so well, the original and the sequel, is that it takes the idea of being sentient and what it means to be sentient, and is an AI a person? What does it mean to be a person? It asks these questions without leading you down a definitive path of this is right and this is wrong, and it's thought-provoking. That is the best way to describe Blade Runner movies. They're thought-provoking science fiction movies, and I felt like this movie wasn't thought-provoking. It gets to a point where it's just kind of binary in good versus evil, and it doesn't really have that element of how do you feel about about what it means to be sentient. And they try to do that with the child character, who I felt like the actor that plays that child character is really excellent. It is really hard to be a child actor, and especially when you are the focal point of the movie and not ruin the movie. We recently watched Remember the Titans, and Hayden Panettiere is incredible in that movie, and it really is amazing how a child actor can make or break your movie if you get a good one. all of the movies that I mentioned, it has elements of those movies, but I felt like those movies did all those things better. But again, I would recommend this movie. This is a movie that it is not a sequel. It's not a remake. It's not just here's member berries. It is Gareth Edwards without the restraints of a franchise like Star Wars to hold them back. There's a lot of this movie that there's things that I'm like, that's literally right out of Rogue One. I keep saying Rogue One, but it's you cannot watch this movie and not think of Rogue One, because I love Rogue One. And there's a lot of elements from that are in this movie. So perhaps it's not that he's borrowing from it. It's more that he's recycling elements of it. Repurposing for the here and now. So I would recommend this movie. Support original movies. That's my biggest thing. This is a blockbuster movie. I have no idea. It's too early to have like projections as to what it's going to do at the box office. It's PG-13. It's like 2 hours and 13 minutes long. Runtime is pretty good. I didn't feel like it was dragging too much. Felt like the last act was a little bloated, went a little over the top. But support, like Gareth Edwards clearly had a vision. He was very diligent. I just really, Thor: Love and Thunder, right? Taika Waititi just like on a alleged coke bender, just nonsense, just I'm phoning it in. Clearly Gareth Edwards was not phoning this movie in. He clearly was very passionate about making an original film, and I really appreciate that. I do think most people will like this movie, if not love this movie. So I would recommend this movie. Do you have a star rating or a some type of rating system that you want to, or do you just want to say you recommend the movie?
I do recommend the movie once again, and I would give this movie a 5 out of 5.
Wow, good damn.
Yeah.
How about that? Yeah. 5 out of 5.
I thought it was great. It just reminded me like why I love movies, and just it reminds you of what movies can be and like how far you can go and the stories that you can tell. Like everything doesn't have to be based on a novel or a series or an IP or a remake of a reboot of a prequel. Like it doesn't have to be that. We can make original movies and tell original stories, and that is the biggest reason to go and see this film. So 5 out of 5.
There was a few moments where John David Washington sounded like Denzel, and to me there are humorous elements of the movie. Some land, some don't, but that to me was the funniest part of the movie. Was there's moments where he just had that Denzel sound in his voice, and that made me laugh. It's just funny because most of the time he's not. Most of the time you're not watching. It's just he's his own man. He's a good actor, and you're not thinking of he's Denzel Washington's son until those moments where I could hear it in the back of his throat. I'm like, that's Denzel's son, because he just, yeah, you are your father's son. I would give this movie 7 out of 10, which is a good rating. That's not a bad rating. I know people always are like 7 out of 10 is not very good. It is good. It's a recommendation. I'd say the visuals are a 9 out of 10. This movie's worth seeing just to see how far we've come. Yeah. And in actual, like, again, the CGI nonsense that we've seen in Marvel movies recently where it's just visual bleh. This movie is not that. It's worth seeing. It is very well done. A lot of time and effort clearly went into making this movie look as good as possible. So I would recommend this movie 7 out of 10. I'd love to see it again. Maybe on a second time I'd like it even more. If you want us to do a spoiler review, please put a comment in the comment section below. Like and subscribe to this video. Check out all the last page episodes where we talk about movies that are either really old or movies that are really new. And typically we'll get into a bunch of arguments over whether or not a movie's good. So yes, like and subscribe. Subscribe and like. Leave a comment if you want us to do spoiler review. And we'll see you next time at the movies.